Today I'm going to go through the Create Shapes and Use Layer Modes exercise. I'm going to start with inside the app, you've already been working on a drawing and you're going to create a new drawing from there. So you're going to go to the upper left-hand side, go where the brush and plus sign is and say I would like to create a new sketch and press Create. It's going to ask me, do I want to save the current sketch? Do I want to save it as a copy or discard my changes? I'll go ahead and save the current sketch and put it into my gallery. Okay? And I will show you in another tutorial, I will show you the gallery and how to organize that. So now let's look over to the right-hand side. This is, we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at layers and layer features. At the bottom of that layers bar, so that's left-hand side, is a little kind of rainbow color see-through circle. This is where a lot of the swatches and also access to the color wheel is. There's a couple places that the color wheel can be accessed, but this is one of them. You can see I have a range of swatches here, so those are some starter colors to work with, or I can press on the little circle at the top and I can get the Copic illustration markers. So if you have a set of those at home, all of these colors correspond. Or I can go to the traditional color wheel and I can manipulate my color through there. Just so you understand, the outside of the wheel is hue, that is pure color, and the inside of the wheel takes you through saturation. So if you go to the far right, that's fully saturated color. Far left, gray color or desaturated color, also called a tone. So if you add gray, you're toning a color. Go to the top, that's tinted, so that's adding white. And going to the bottom, that's shade, so that's adding black. Okay, so you can always manipulate your colors through here as well. Sometimes it's nice to start with a base color, say in the Copic swatches, a base BG13, then go over to the color wheel and make it lighter, darker, grayer, depending on what you're working on, okay, what your drawing looks like or your digital painting. To get rid of these swatches, you need to press on that icon again and they will minimize. The next layer deals only with the canvas or paper and allows you to give it kind of a color. So if you were prepping a canvas, this would be a background wash. If you were buying papers at the store for drawing, this might be colored paper. Colored charcoal paper sometimes comes in a range of grays. Drawing paper sometimes comes in a range of tans. So this gives you the opportunity to add those colors to your background. I'm going to go ahead and press on that light white circle, it looks like. Go down to my Copic markers, my grays. So I have cool gray and warm gray here, whereas at the bottom gray I have more of neutral. They don't have as much temperature. But I'm going to go back to that cool gray and I'm going to give it just a really, really light gray tone so we can kind of see me working on top of it. And then I'm going to get started with the exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with 3 different layers, and we're also going to learn how to use blending modes. We're going to learn the shape command, we're going to learn how fill works, and then how brushes interact with the shape commands. So the first thing you want to know is that when you're using the shape tool, whatever brush you have selected is the brush that's going to make the outline for that shape. Okay, so if you use a pencil, you're going to have a pencil outline. If you have a brush, you have a brush outline. So whatever you choose, if it's watercolor, it'll be a light wash outline. So whatever you choose will determine how the shape acts on the outline. I'm going to start this one with a pencil. So you also have to be aware of the fact if you're using hard pressure or low pressure, and I'll show you why in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead to the shape icon. I'm going to leave that open and that will allow me to draw various shapes on the canvas. Okay, so I'm going to draw my first 3. I'm also going to change my color a little bit so I can work in grayscale first. So I'm going to pick a nice light white so you can see the lines and draw out my rectangle. Okay. Actually, that line is a little light, so I'm going to make sure I take up the opacity, make it a lot darker here so that my next one is easier to see. Okay, so you can see that line's a little bit darker. And I'm going to go back here and make a smaller rectangle here. So I have one really light line, and then I have two kind of dark lines. I used a pencil, and I kept it kind of small so the outlines aren't so big. I'm now going to go to the paint bucket, and I'm going to fill. Now, one thing you have to know is if you take the tolerance up, that means it's going to read more of the area to fill. So for example, with my light lines on the left-hand side, if I'm not careful, I could end up filling the entire canvas. Let me just press in here. Oh yeah, see, it read the other two, but it didn't read that first one because the lines are so light. So I'm gonna use my back arrow. I'm gonna take my tolerance all the way down, and then via the assignment, I'm supposed to pick complementary colors. So I'm gonna scroll through my menu and just kind of, for starters, pick a color that I like, kind of like this pinky fuchsia. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick one of those there, that kind of pink, and press inside. And because I kept my tolerance really low, it read the outside line, very light wash. Now you can see there's a little corner there that hasn't been filled because the circle overlaps it. So I need to go in there and dot my bucket in there as well to make sure that the color goes inside. Now for my next shape, I need to pick a complementary color. What's nice about this app is that it actually gives you an option. So you can see there's a complementary blue here at the bottom. That's saying yes, that's at the bottom of the color wheel, or that's across from the color that you picked. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill in my circle with that complementary color from the presets. Now it's giving me new complements because of the blue that I used. So why don't I pick a darker pink than what I had before, and I can fill this last square. And that made that pretty easy. So that layer is more or less done. I have finished, I have my pink, and then I have my kind of blue-green, and that covers my complement layer. I'm gonna go ahead and make a new layer. I'm gonna go back to my shape tool, and I'm actually gonna switch my brush. So I'm gonna switch over to a paintbrush this time. Again, take the opacity up, the outside down. The darker, like the more opaque, less washy it is, the easier it is to fill it with a paint bucket. So just remember that. This time, I'm gonna actually do kind of a gray outline, something a little different. And I'm gonna do a square, small oval here, and maybe just a longer rectangle there, something like that. I might even do one more oval because I'm not 100% loving that. So if you want to do more than 3 shapes, feel free. If there's a shape that you're not, if you want to kind of move that around, I think that looks a little bit better on the overlaps, you can do that as well. So as you can see, I switched to that little move arrow there and changed how my new shapes sat on top of the old shapes. So I say 3, but you can do more than that if you'd like, depending on what you want the composition to look like. Now I'm going to do analogous colors. And remember, analogous colors were those that were close to each other on the color wheel. So this time I'm gonna switch over, pick maybe a yellow, and grab my paint bucket and go into that square there, okay? Now notice it's not reacting with the shapes underneath because this is a new layer, so it's not even noticing what's happening there. It's just reading what's happening on the top layer. I'm gonna go right next door to the oranges and pick a nice orange color. That's kind of orange-yellow. Fill that square. These are all close to each other, so I can kind of run through these swatches and pick something here too. Or maybe just maybe go back to yellows and get something that is maybe a different kind of yellow, something like that, okay? And that covers, those are analogous, so those colors are very, very close. They're all warm. They don't rotate, they don't go across the color wheel. They are just colors that are very close to each other on the color wheel. I would just want to show you another little trick. You can actually press this little canvas button on the upper right hand corner, and if you really want to look at your composition, you can get rid of all those tools so you can see what's going on the canvas. You can still slide your brushes up and down if you're doing that for opacity and size, and keep the puck out. So that can be really helpful if you don't want all of the chaos of your toolbars being open all at once. I'm going to bring them back so I can finish up with my layers. The last thing that I asked you to do is create a layer, pick the paint bucket, and then fill this layer with any color you want. Okay, so I'm going to just pick something completely random at this point. Let me do this violet here, and just tap on the canvas and boom, all your work disappears. Now, actually, all you've done is just cover everything that you've done in a new layer. I can tap on that layer, and you can see if I take the opacity up and down, I can start to see what's underneath. But what I've asked you to do in this assignment is start to work with the blending modes, which is just below here. So I'm going to press on blending modes. And you can see as I click through these different options that what's happening with all my colors and shapes underneath is changing. Okay? So I've asked that you pick something in the blending modes that really changes what the original colors look like. And to me, something around here, these hue saturations, that really, really changes what I started with. And that actually, the whole palette, so from here to here to here, I've really changed in the final one what the original shapes and colors look like. I'm gonna go ahead here. This will be the first image that I'll save to finalize my work, and I'm gonna press share. And I'm gonna save image, and it will go automatically to my iPhotos. And then I'm going to toggle the visibility. By toggling the visibility, I take the eyeball off. Okay, so that makes it so that layer isn't seen very well. Okay, I'm basically closing my eyes when I do that, closing my eyes to that layer. And now I'm actually going to share this image as well. So I'm going to say share, and I'm going to save it to my iPhotos. I'm going to exit out of here real quick, go up to photography, and you can see in my iPhotos, those two images are here and here. And that's what I want you to submit in the assignment portal. You have the version 1 and you have version 2. So 2 versions of your drawing are already ready to go by toggling the visibility. And that is all. So go ahead, go through those steps, and then when you're finished, submit your work into the Canvas portal.